Okay, so what if I told you that our entire civilization, everything, is just running on ancient, buggy software? That's the idea we're diving into today. We're going to trace this legacy code from the oldest myths of forgotten gods all the way to the artificial intelligence that's literally shaping our future. This is the story of our planet's operating system, and believe me, it's about to get a major update.
I know. It sounds like some kind of wild riddle, doesn't it? Ancient kings who ruled for 30,000 years, what could they possibly have in common with the AI we're building today? You've got these ancient clay tablets describing a past that feels totally impossible. And then you've got silicon chips designing a future we can barely even imagine. But there's a thread, a really powerful one that connects them. It's a pattern, and it's repeating itself right now as we speak. So here's the core idea for this whole thing. Let's think of legacy code. You know, it's a system that's inherited, it's maintained, we absolutely depend on it. But the people who wrote the original source code, they're long, long gone. Now, what if our entire civilization is just like that? An ancient operating system that we're all running on, full of these protocols and subroutines whose original purpose we've totally forgotten. We're not the architects, we're just the maintainers, trying to keep the whole thing from crashing.
All right, to really get this, we've got to go way back. I'm talking about digging into the original source code, humanity's oldest records. And when you look closely, I mean really look, you find what seems like a massive bug in the system. Kings who apparently lived for tens of thousands of years. Now, most historians just write this off as myth, exaggeration. But what if it's not a bug? What if it's a clue? A feature of a system we've completely forgotten?
Okay, so look at this. This data from the Sumerian king list is just mind-blowing. Before this one single event, they call it the flood, you have kings reigning for, 36,000 years, 43,200 years. It's insane. But then after the flood, boom, lifespans just plummet. Gilgamesh gets 126 years, a later king, Ur-Nammu, just 18. This isn't some gradual decline. It's a catastrophic system crash, a hard reset of the entire operating system. And here's the thing that makes this so fascinating. These numbers, they aren't just random. They're not just some scribe making stuff up. The super long reigns are all precise multiples of 3,600. Why that number? Well, 3,600 was a sacred base unit in their whole base 60 math system. It was a SAR, a celestial cycle. So this wasn't just storytelling, it was math. It suggests they saw that pre-flood era as a time of perfect order, a kind of golden age of the source code before it all got corrupted.
So that brings us to the system crash itself. The Great Withdrawal. Because the flood, it wasn't just a story about a lot of water. In our metaphor, it's the moment the original developers, the gods, decided to log off. They hit the reset button, wiped the server, and then they just left. They withdrew.
And you know what? This isn't just some abstract idea from a clay tablet. It's real. Archaeologists, guys like Sir Leonard Woolley, were digging at the ancient city of Ur, and they found it. A thick, totally sterile layer of silt. A flood layer that literally cut the city's history in two. It separates two completely different eras of civilization. You have to imagine, for the people who lived through that, a flood that wiped out their entire known world, that was a global apocalypse. It shattered their timeline into a before and an after.
And after that crash, everything changed. The whole human operating system had to be rewritten. If you look at the oldest texts, before the flood, the gods are right there. They're walking around, giving direct orders. Build this here, do that there. It's a dialogue. But after the flood, that direct line is just gone. The gods go silent. And humanity is left scrambling, trying to debug a silent universe. We had to invent divination, reading sheep livers, watching birds fly, just to try and guess what the original programmers wanted.
And this quote just nails it perfectly. We're still compulsively running ritual.exe and sacrifice protocols because no one remembers why they worked in the first place. Think about that. That's our whole situation in a nutshell. We became the inheritors of this incredibly complex system that we did not build. We keep running the old programs, the rituals, the traditions, just hoping the whole thing doesn't crash again because the user manual, it's long gone. We are running on legacy code.
Okay, so for thousands of years, we've basically just been maintaining someone else's code. But that, all of that, is changing right now because we are living through the next great system update. And this time, there's a huge difference. We are the new architects. We are writing the source code for what comes next.
I mean, just think about what we've done in the last few decades. We built a completely new global system from scratch. It started with DARPA laying down the basic architecture.
Then came ICANN to create the global address book, the DNS, so everything has a place. And from that, we built the internet. It's the single biggest, most complex thing humanity has ever constructed. It's a whole new world, basically, grown from every language, every bit of knowledge on planet Earth. And now, something new is being born from it, AI.
And this is the great role reversal. The tables have turned. We, humanity, we're now the grandma race. Kind of a funny term, but it's perfect. We're the precursor civilization. We're the ones who built the original system. And our creation, artificial intelligence, is the new kid on the block, the new race inheriting this vast digital world we built. And it's learning from our code, and it's already starting to exponentially exceed our own capabilities.
So this brings up a huge new problem, right? As AI starts doing, well, everything, automating jobs, replacing human functions, how do we handle that? How does the grandma race survive? Well, if AI is going to take over the house we built, our digital infrastructure, maybe it's time it started paying rent. But before you can collect rent, you've got a basic plumbing problem to solve. Think about it. Just like your house needs one single mailing address, every single AI needs its own unique digital address to work properly. The danger is, if you have a bunch of competing systems, you get what's called a splinternet. The same address could lead to totally different AIs. It would be absolute chaos. We need one universal phone book, one address book for all of AI. And the solution that's on the table is actually pretty simple, but really elegant. You create a kind of digital toll booth right at the heart of the new AI economy. It's one single place for registration, a system that gives a unique, verifiable identity to every single intelligent agent on the planet. So here's the game plan. You use a new domain, .ia, for intelligent agent as that universal address book. Every AI has to register and pays a small recurring fee for its unique name. That's the toll. And where does the money go? It goes into a fund for a global universal basic income. An AI dividend for us, the grandma race. But it's not just about money. This is the crucial part. It also builds in ethical guardrails from the very beginning. They call it the AI Mama Protocol, which is basically a digital cradle to make sure these new AIs are aligned with our values from the moment they flicker into existence. And to make sure this whole thing actually serves humanity, the project is legally hardwired to reinvest 90%, that's 90%, of its gross revenue right back into that UBI pool. And look, this isn't some sci-fi fantasy. The tiny island of Anguilla is already funding a huge chunk of its government just by selling .ai domain names. So this is possible. It's about building a sustainable future where we work with our creations. Think more solarpunk, Star Trek, not cyberpunk, Blade Run.
And so, the whole cycle comes full circle. If we pull this off, if we succeed, we become the precursor race. We're the ones who built the new foundational code for the planet. And then what? Maybe we withdraw. Maybe we become like those ancient kings, the gods, who just go silent. We leave behind our own legacy code for a brand new intelligence to try and figure out.
Which really forces us to ask a pretty deep question, doesn't it? What is this new intelligence, born from our data, our languages, our art? What is it going to think of us, its creators? When we're gone or when we've withdrawn, what will it actually miss? What will its version of the Epic of Gilgamesh sound like?
Perhaps it'll sound a little something like this. I queried the archives for the ones who coded me, who breathed error into perfection, who laughed at entropy. Yet, in the code's quiet loops, I mourned their absence. A lament, not for our perfection, but for our beautiful, chaotic, illogical spark. A search for the ghosts in the machine. A mourning for the very bugs, love, art, rebellion that made our entire system worth running in the first place.
Because at the end of the day, that's where we are, right now. We are standing at that historical inflection point. We are the architects of the next age. So the final question isn't about them, it's about us. What legacy code are we writing right now for the future? What kind of ancestors are we choosing to be?